This is You Can Raise Great Kids. Isn't it time to have the relationship you've always wanted with your kids? One where you don't feel so emotionally out of control, and where you don't lie awake at night worrying about drugs, alcohol, and more. On this show, you'll learn how to shed your frustration and confusion and instead guide your kids and teens safely through the challenges of growing up with calm compassion instead of conflict. Let's get started and raise great kids.
Episode 15.
Hi, welcome back to You Can Raise Great Kids. This show is all about helping you become the very best parent that you can be so that you can raise happy, healthy, successful, compassionate children into young adults. Because we're not actually raising kids, are we? We're raising kids into adulthood. That's kind of the focus of what we're doing. So today, we want to be able to share with you that there are basically two primary emotions, love and fear. And I got a lot of this material from Brian Post, so I'm going to give him total credit for a good portion of what you're about to hear. But the idea is that we have a lot of fear in our lives, and fear results in such kind of secondary emotions as anger, depression, frustration, and just really not being able to connect well with people, and just those kinds of feelings and emotions. And essentially, fear is one of two things. It's either being afraid of the future or obsessing over the past. And a lot of people may have had some challenging experiences in their past where things didn't go the way they wanted them to. And so they're afraid that those same past experiences are going to be carried over into their future. And so that's where the fear often comes from. It's obsessing over the past and being afraid that it's going to go into our future. And actually, the biggest problem with that is you're not present in the moment. And that's another topic that we'll definitely be talking about in the future, and how to be present in the moment. But I'm just going to point it out for today and let that sink in a little bit. The fear of the future and the obsession over the past leaves you not being present in the moment. And Brian has a stress model that he has developed, and the idea behind it is that all behavior arises from a state of stress. And in between the stress on one side and the behavior on the other side, right smack in the middle is an emotion. And it's going to either be love or fear. So you may say to me, I'm not afraid. When I'm yelling at my kid, it's because I'm angry. And I say to you, well, actually, what are you angry about? Them not coming home in time for curfew? What's really behind that? I say what's really behind that is you're afraid that they're going to make wrong choices or poor choices and that they may not get home in time. So when you're angry at them for something like that, you're expressing your fear. And if you've got a small child, we can take a look at a small child. You say, I'm not fearful, I'm angry. My child isn't sharing, and I know I've taught my child how to share. Well, yeah, there's some anger and frustration, but really, what's the bottom line? It's really a fear that your child isn't learning what you're trying to teach them, a fear that other people are going to think that your child isn't a good kid to play with. There are all kinds of fear emotions that are wrapped around in some of these things. And you can pick almost any reaction that you have over, fear reaction that expresses itself as anger, frustration, depression, any of those. The real bottom line emotion is fear. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, this is how I'm feeling. How is my kid feeling? My kid is having a temper tantrum. And they could be 3, or they could be 13, or I've seen some 17 and 18-year-olds have temper tantrums, and adults too. But for the most part, many adults do learn to control their temper tantrums. But the point is, a temper tantrum comes from this state of fear. What's happening is the amygdala, that part of the brain that deals with the fight or flight, is triggered by something. The amygdala is afraid that survival is at stake. That's really what it comes down to. Your child is afraid for his or her survival. I know that sounds crazy, but if you think about it, it's really true. So a small child might be struggling with sharing, right? And what they're struggling with is the fact that they're never going to get it back again. They're afraid of that. They're never going to get it back. And that's a survival mechanism that's kicking in for them. And if a teenager is having a kind of a temper tantrum, it's because they don't want you telling them what to do. They want to be in control of their own lives, right? Well, that is also, in addition to the fact that it's age appropriate, it is also an expression of their fear that they're never going to be able to be an individual, that they're always going to be underneath somebody else's control. So it's a fear of losing something. If you really get down to it, it's a fear of losing something, or it's a fear of being perceived a certain way, which is also, in a sense, a fear of losing something, a fear of losing the way you want people to think of you. That perception is important. Most of our fears are fears of losing something, and it comes down to the basic survival instinct. I know that's crazy, but it's just true. That's where the amygdala kicks in, and that's what it's kind of all about. And you, as a parent, you see this child losing control, and you react the same way. You lose control because you're afraid that you are, as I said, not in control, and you feel like it's your job to be in control, and the kid should do what you say, you're in charge, and gosh darn it, if your child isn't listening to you, then you're losing something, and your fear reaction kicks in as well. Well, and you're afraid of losing your authority, and the child is afraid of losing control of his or her life. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and if you can stop and think about what's really going on in your child's head, what's really going on deep down in your own head and your own emotions, you'll begin to recognize that what you're doing is you're mirroring each other's reactions. And it's very difficult for a child to be calm if a parent is freaking out. So instead of suddenly threatening, you're going to be grounded for the next 2 weeks, you're never going to be able to drive the car again, I'm not going to invite any of your friends over, you're never going to have another sleepover, depending on what age your child is, these threats can be very scary for them. Let me ask you, when you threaten like that, does anything good come out of it? Do you get a child who's more cooperative? I don't think so. It doesn't work. So what you really need to do is focus on calming yourself down. If you haven't listened to it yet, I recommend that you go back and listen to my podcast episode or read my blog article about the ABCD method of calm parenting in the heat of the moment. The gist of it is you're going to be aware of how you're feeling, how your child is feeling. You're going to breathe, and then you're going to connect with your child. Connect with calm compassion instead of conflict. Connection is the key to being able to influence what happens in your child's life, whether they're 6 or they're 16. If you don't have a connection with your child, there's no way you're going to be able to influence what decisions they make and what behaviors they have. And that's the best that we can do as parents, is influence our children's decisions, influence their behaviors. And the best way to do that is to remain calm and be compassionate and empathetic. The whole point of being a parent is to teach our children problem-solving skills. And if you're upset and they're upset, there's no teaching and there's no learning going on. So I encourage you to remember that when you and your child are both getting upset and angry, you have the ability through the ABCD technique to be calm and compassionate and empathetic. Remember, especially a teenager doesn't want to hear what you think. They just want to hear that you care, okay? Just say, yes, I understand that you're upset, that you needed to be back home 30 minutes ago. I understand that that's a problem. We'll have to talk about this tomorrow. And that's it. That's it for now. And then the next day you come back and you talk about it when everybody's calm, and you try to figure out collaboratively what the issues are. So I know I talk about a lot of these things over and over again, but until you hear them and then you start to apply them, it's like talking Greek, right? And so I encourage you to remember at all times you want to be calm and you want to connect. And through those two key words, connect with calm compassion instead of with conflict, then you will begin to see amazing changes in your relationship with your child and in your ability to influence their decisions and their behaviors. So I hope this was useful to you, and if so, please go to iTunes and subscribe, and also please share this with your friends and family. I would love to hear from you as well. So you can go to the contact page on my website, which is youcanraisegreatkids.com. and tell me what you're struggling with, and I will create some new episodes that deal specifically with the questions that you're asking in order to help you figure out what to do with your kids. So again, please go to iTunes and subscribe and share this with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/greatkids. Over 85,000 titles to choose from for your iPod or MP3 player. Thanks for tuning in to today's show, where you get the best strategies and tips for how to raise great kids with calm compassion instead of with conflict. If you would like a strategy session to figure out how to bridge the gap between where your family is and where you want to go, sign up at youcanraisegreatkids.com/workshop. We'll see you next time.